around with that this morning. In the recorded meetings, you can pause the recording and unpause the recording and pause it back again and do whatever you need to do. So we are now officially being recorded. I don't know if any of you tried to log in yesterday and watch the recording from yesterday's meeting. I haven't yet, but it's a pretty big file. So we'll just catch anybody else up before too much time passes. We have today the mock ATF, and I kind of want to take you guys through my own preparation, just in short what that looks like. You don't have to do things my way. I think my way is the best way, obviously, but that doesn't mean it's going to be the best way for you or what's going to work well for you. I prefer to print things out just so I can have a hard copy, especially with online meetings. I feel like I start to get a little anxious when I fumble around between screens and things. And so I like to have something in front of me. So what I printed off last night were a couple different documents. I went to, well, let me show you first and then I'll show you where I found them. I printed off the script that we showed you yesterday from the PDF. So I have a copy of the script in case I get flustered or in case I get lost on a screen or I forget exactly what I want to say. From the portal page, I printed off the RSVP list. Like I mentioned yesterday, I feel like this is just an easier way to check off attendance. And when we go through the mock ATF, I'll run through kind of how I do that. But rather than trying to write everybody's name down or listen to what everybody's saying, I find that this checklist works better. I've printed off a page. Today, we're going to do a mock ATF on the communication ATF. I don't recall who's facilitating the communication ATF, but if it's one of you, you're basically seeing exactly how I would do it. But I printed off the Common Core matrix. This way I can record changes right on here. I can cross things off. I can add things in the fields. That makes it much more simple if you're not going to make live changes during the meeting. And then I picked communication because it only has one exam matrix, but I printed off the Principles of Public Speaking DSST exam matrix. Some ATFs have a lot of exams. I find it just keeps me on track. If I print each one of them off, I can record all my changes there and have that ready to go. So let me share my screen. I'm going to show you where I found all of that information right here on the communication ATF page. Here would be the RSVP. We know that nobody's actually RSVP'd for the COM ATF, so I actually printed the RSVP for today's facilitator meeting. But if I just clicked here, this would have, oh, and look, actually 3 people have. I would just print this page right here.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, I still didn't share my screen yet. See, thanks guys. Like I tell my kids, even moms make mistakes. Even executive directors make mistakes all day long. So the communication ATF, it looks like 3 people have actually RSVP'd for that. So if this were actually the communication ATF, you just go up here and you could print that page. If we go back, this is the portal page. Here's the communication matrix. So this is the Common Core matrix. CN should have gone over this with you in detail about what this means, but this is all of the bachelor's degrees at the university that are affiliated with a communication discipline. Those are listed here. The common pathway is the Associate of Arts. The common AJEC is the AJEC A. So all of these bachelor's degrees will accept an Associate of Arts and will accept and align with the AJEC A. These common courses are ones that the 3 state universities have agreed will fit into their bachelor's degree outside of the AJEC. So given all the 35 credits of Gen Ed, these are the courses that a student should take at a community college at the 100 and 200 level that will be preparation for these bachelor's degrees. So you can see this is interpersonal communication, intro to comm, public speaking, and small group communication. What we're going to do in the mock ATF meeting today is align or make sure that these confirm that these are still correct, that this is the appropriate preparation for these degrees. But what I'm looking for when I prepare for this meeting, when I print this off, is I'm looking for these types of things. So Arizona Western College, I'm going to want to make sure I ask them, hey, Arizona Western College, you still don't have an interpersonal comm class? Because this says NA, you don't have one. Same with Coconino, same with Dene, same with Thana Otham. Okay, then I'm looking for anything that looks off, like anything that doesn't look aligned. Now, I'm not a comm faculty. I'm not, communication isn't my historical discipline. So I don't know immediately, are all of these classes interpersonal communication? Are all of these intro to communication? Are all of these public speaking? Are all these small group? They should be, but that's what you're going to need to ask your faculty. But on my sheet, I'm just going to go through. What I like to do is take a highlighter and highlight the things, the anomalies or things that look off to me. You see that Northland College still has an under review. Under review means that they haven't reviewed it yet. We would like that to move either to a value or to say NA not applicable or not available. We don't want to leave things in under review. To me, and that's my personal preference, we changed that a couple years back. I think under review means to our constituents that it's actively being reviewed. And in the past, we had 3 or 4 years of under review statuses. And if I were a family or a student, I would assume that, oh, it's getting reviewed today. I'll check back next week and there might be an answer. So the goal with all of these matrices is to have under review an actual value. Either we don't accept it, we don't have it, or what it actually is. But so you can see here on my sheet, I've gone through and I've highlighted a few of the things that look off to me, something that I just want to confirm with the faculty. I'm going to do the same for the DSST exam. If I come here, so communication only has 1 exam. You're going to want to prepare, I would recommend the week before your meeting so that you don't show up the morning and you see that you have 12 exams, or if you're the languages ATF, that you have like 20 exams. That's going to be how you're going to manage your time. Most of these exam matrices and common course matrices have been worked through for years and years and years. So most of them just need a quick confirmation and you scanning to make sure that there are no empty values. So here, DSST, what stands out to me at first is, okay, ASU and NAU give it elective, but U of A gives it COM 119. COM 119, I know from the course, from the Common Course Matrix, is the public speaking course. So in the meeting ahead of time, I'm going to highlight that and I'm going to ask ASU, NAU, and U of A, hey, I just want to confirm U of A is giving this public speaking credit, but ASU and NAU are giving it elective credit. That's a discrepancy. There is legislation that AP, IB, and Cambridge be aligned. DSST and CLEP, there is not a legislative expectation that those be aligned, but it's still good practice. So if a student took this DSST class or exam and they got a 400 or higher, you can see here's the exam score. If they got a 400 or higher, if they had a choice, they might be like, well, shoot, I'd rather go to U of A because I'm going to get credit for it. You can see here how all the community colleges, how they have reviewed that. So I'm going to mark that also. I'm going to see, okay, well, TOCC still has under review. So I'm going to want to make sure I confirm with the TOCC faculty member, hey, we need a value from you. Either you don't accept it or you're going to give some type of credit for it. But the confusing thing for the community colleges here is who should they align with? Should they align with U of A and give it public speaking credit, but then it's not going to be aligned with ASU or NAU? Or should they align with ASU and NAU and give it elective credit, but then it's not aligned with U of A? So internally, just so you guys know, our process every year is to start first with the 3 state universities. They review each of these exams. They align them as much as they can so that we don't have some of these discrepancies. DSST is a little bit different though. So this is probably a poor example of that, but those are the things that I'm going to want to confirm in this meeting. I also see, CACC, Coconino, Dene, EAC, Mojave, NPC, Pima, and Yavapai have said that they don't accept this for credit. And that's fine. That's an okay thing to have. Many community colleges, especially in the smaller communities, have said, until we start getting transcripts for these, we're not going to accept them. We don't see a lot of students, our faculty don't want to review this exam. That's okay. A lot of institutions will also just align with whatever the universities do. But what makes the most sense to me is that all of our institutions are aligned. Because if a student took this DSST exam and they went to Pima Community College and Pima says, sorry, we don't accept that for credit, enroll in public speaking, take the class, they do it, then they transfer to U of A. U of A is going to say, hey, you have this DSST exam credit for public speaking, and you took public speaking. A student might be like confused by that, right? The reverse is true. If Pima Community College gave credit for the exam, and then they didn't take public speaking at the community college, and then they get to U of A, and U of A says, well, we don't accept that. You have to take it again. So that's the reason that we want alignment here. So that's what I'll go through, you know, so again, I printed this off. I highlight the things that I want to remember to ask the faculty. Because I have it printed out, I can record all of my answers on this sheet as we're talking through it. The other thing, like I mentioned, let's see, the meeting reports. I would, again, recommend that you do this like the week before. You can click on the meeting notes. This shows you, okay, Kathy Silberman facilitated the meeting last year. So I could be like, hey, Kathy, you know, you don't have to, but I'm always interested in the dynamic of things. I'm always interested in the relational aspect of things. I should be able to read here. And you know, a year ago was a year ago. We're not all gonna remember exactly what happened, but Kathy might have some awesome things to say about this group. But I can read through here, you know, it doesn't look, my eye immediately goes to the blank spots. It doesn't look like there were any votes or issues raised, but you can see that NAU is gonna look at this argumentation class from Maricopa, argumentation and debate. So we might see some of that come through. Glendale talks about these courses, but I don't see anything that's extremely urgent or consequential. I can see here in CEG changes, Danae, their speech communication class was course title not available. Remember, that was one of the database updates we went over yesterday to make sure that course title not found was replaced. So that might come up, or I'm gonna look to make sure that that was done. And then EAC noted that COM 150 is no longer offered, and they went through this too. So I'm just gonna keep those things in mind. If I want more information, I can go here to the meeting notes, and I can open the meeting notes and read the full record of the meeting. Our office does all of this at the end of each meeting, but you might want to, you know, see if anything else jumps out at you, just because I don't like to walk into a meeting unprepared. I don't like to be caught off guard. Some of the real awkward things in these ATF meetings can be like a faculty member says, we've asked for this for 3 years and it hasn't been changed on the website. And that we lose our credibility with them. So I like to make sure that there aren't issues risen, that things don't come up that they're asking for that we haven't delivered on. Because you don't want to walk in that meeting, if this is especially your first time facilitating, and be caught off guard. Now, some facilitators have facilitated the same discipline year after year after year. If that's your jam, make sure that you talk to Sienna about doing that, and we'll see if we can accommodate those requests for future years. I can see the benefit both ways, that if you get to know a faculty group and you get to know the curriculum really well, there is some advantage to being familiar with that. But sometimes that doesn't always work if they're gonna host the meeting across the state or somewhere else. So, but those things, I have everything prepared for the meeting. I have my documents right here. I'm ready to go. Any questions before we get started with the mock ATF? Okay. So I'm just gonna, again, walk you through what I do. You can see, I'm gonna make sure that I have all the portal pages pulled up. I'm gonna make sure that I have my PowerPoint pulled up, which I don't yet, but you can go back to your virtual. Actually, you don't even have to go to your virtual binder, sorry. Right here, the ATF meeting slides are here. I'm gonna open that up. And then I'm kind of just going to be in presentation mode going through this ATF as I would with you, any other group. You can see here, all of our notes are included here below, but I'm going to use my script. I'm actually, yes.
This is starting at the beginning with the Zoom ID and the phone and everything. If we're going to do ours, like I'm going to be doing mine from the conference room that I'm in right now, do I still use that same ID that you put on the portal pages for each one?
Yeah, anybody can access those and click through that, and you should be the host for that.
So
well, actually, CN, will that work if she doesn't use her personal one, if she uses the conference code one? She can still be the host? CN, you might be muted. I can't see you.
Sorry, it's the same link. So the only purpose for me naming a host for a meeting, unless Zoom has done something different this year, the only reason for me naming a host is so that I can set up multiple meetings for the same time. Otherwise, it's all the same link. Everybody links from the same.
But will she be able to let people in the waiting room, in from the waiting room, or will she be in the waiting room waiting for a host?
I don't know the answer to that because we've never done a waiting room before, and we've never done, like, we haven't done that scenario before. So that's what would probably.
Could you and her, maybe Shirley and CN, you guys could get together and try it out and make sure. So that is one of the aspects that we're adding this year that we hadn't added before when we had Zoom, was just the waiting room feature. I feel like that crowd control just helps you with the check-in sheet and the sign-in sheet. To manage attendance and then make sure that the appropriate people are there. But see, I'm just wondering if that might be the only thing, is she might be stuck in the waiting room waiting for Shirley Skinner, official host, to let her in.
Well, I can add, because I did that last year. So I had to do a conference room login for Central Arizona, but what I did is when you go in, it'll ask if you're the host. If you're the host, then it'll ask you to log in, so she can log in as herself, even through the conference, and it'll allow her to be the host when she does that.
Okay, thanks, Snea.
Yeah.
Okay, so Shirley and you and CN, or somebody, you might want to just test it out a couple times from your conference room, and so that you can have assurance that it works the way you need it to work. But yeah, just from that portal page, you can use that Zoom link and it should work.
Okay.
So Shirley you'll just have to, we can do that. We'll do that. We'll set up a time to do that. But and all the other times when we said you won't ever need your ASU login credentials anymore, that would be the case that you do.
Okay.
So make sure you have all of that stuff.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off this meeting like we all just walked in the room. I'm gonna start with attendance. I'm not gonna take the 2 minutes to go through, but I'm gonna have my thing and I'm gonna say, okay, Catherine Antonucci, are you here? No. And the people that aren't here, I mean, it's not a jab, it's just somebody like Catherine doesn't need to sit through the mock ATF again. But you can also see people's names or see people's faces. I can see that Elena's here. I can see that Christy is here, go through. If, then I would also ask, all right, is there anybody's name I didn't call? And make sure that we record that attendance too. Part of the meeting report at the end is going to ask you to identify if there were representatives from each institution. If I have this attendance sheet here, this has the institution next to it. So I just need to know people's names and record anybody else. My experience has been there are always last minute substitutions or people that had RSVP that didn't come, but having it this way makes it easy. So we've gone through the RSVP. All right, next. It's also going to depend on the level of comfort of your chair. Sometimes your chair also wants to run the meeting or they want to do a brief welcome. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, but communicating with your chair ahead of the meeting and talking to them to see what their preferences are. Some that have done it for a really long time take a lot of pride in wanting to do something with this group. Others that are brand new are really uncomfortable and just want you to do everything. So that depends. All right. Today, welcome to the Communication ATF. We're going to go ahead and get started, but before I can start with the official meeting, I'm going to need a note taker. And I'll tell you guys, this is always like awkward silence. Some ATFs have already identified a note taker the meeting before. Most of them have not. But we really need somebody to record the decisions, not minutes. These aren't minutes. We don't follow Robert's Rules of Order. We don't do a specific, we don't transcribe every single thing that gets said, but major decisions, any votes, any curriculum. The Zoom recording is not sufficient for meeting notes because that Zoom recording is only available for 90 days. So we need a we need a note taker. Somebody can just pretend. If you're really ballsy, you can just assign somebody. Like, all right, Jenny Lee Voice, I'd like you to be the note taker today. You don't really have to take notes, but if this were the meeting, and my preference is that I get them immediately after the meeting. I don't care what they look like. I just want something. If you need to amend them later, you can do that. I also prefer not handwritten notes, because handwritten notes are really hard to read. I don't know who writes notes still in pencil, but some faculty, or maybe you do. I'm going to make fun of you if you, well, I'm not going to make fun of you, but if you write notes in pencil, it's really hard to read, especially when they get scanned in. But sometimes people take their note-taking skills very, very seriously and want to do a very fastidious job. That's awesome, but I need them by the end of the day. So Jenny Lee Voice, if you'll take those notes and if you'll email them to me by the end of today, my email's kelly@aztransfer.com. Whatever you do is great. We also need a chat monitor. Is somebody super familiar with Zoom that wouldn't mind monitoring the chat in case we have any questions that pop up there that I don't pay attention to? Christy, would you be willing to do that for us today? Awesome. Okay. I'm going to minimize my screen and not look at your faces at all, so I can do this. And I'm hoping I can do it in about 40 minutes, just because I'm going to go through some stuff really quickly. So welcome to the Communication ATF. My name's Kelly Robles. I am facilitating this meeting today on behalf of AZTransfer.
A recurring testing nightmare. I was online for 5.5.
Okay. I guess maybe one good reminder real quickly is to mute your microphone if you have some background noise or other things that come up, or if you're like me, if you have your children, that might surprise you throughout the meeting. But welcome to the Communication ATF. AZTransfer is the statewide organization, the collective effort of Arizona's community colleges and tribal colleges and the 3 state universities. We've been around for about 20 years. We were started in the mid-90s in active state legislation that had created an expectation that community colleges and universities work together to align coursework and degree programs. We're governed by the AZTransfer Steering Committee, which has representatives from each of your institutions, the Chief Academic Officer, and that group meets quarterly, and we decide statewide initiatives and ways to move forward to better serve students. AZTransfer is funded by all of our partnering institutions and the state legislature, and each institution pays annual dues each year. These are all of our participating institutions. You should see your college or university logo here. If you don't, you might be in the wrong meeting. We do serve the public institutions exclusively. The statutory expectation is that the public institutions work well together. We are asked continuously if other institutions can join, and those decisions are made by our executive committee. But for the past 20 years, we have remained serving only the public institutions. You can also see 2 of our tribal colleges, Dene College and Thana Atham Community College. There is a 3rd tribal college, the San Carlos Apache College, which is a provisional college served right now by Thana Atham Community College. There is also 2 other provisional colleges, Gila Community College in Gila County and Santa Cruz Community College. Both of those receive their curricular services and administrative oversight by parent institutions, Eastern Arizona College and Pima Community College. There are community colleges in 13 of our 15 counties in Arizona, and we're proud to bring everyone together. Arizona is one of the few states in the country that brings all of its institutions together to align coursework and degree programs for our students. A little bit about AZTransfer structure. So you guys are sitting in a discipline-specific ATF. That's this first box here. There are 43 different academic disciplines. Communication is one of them. We also have statewide groups that work on our AJEC structure, which is our general education. We have our registrars folks get together for admissions and records. Academic advisors get together to talk about advising issues. And we have 2 communities of interest, prior learning assessment and honors. All of those are supported by the AZTransfer staff, which is a team of 5. I am one of about 24 institutional facilitators. So I actually work for fill in the blank community college, but I'm here serving on behalf of AZTransfer here today to run this meeting. And here's the AZTransfer Steering Committee that I just mentioned earlier that governs and directs our statewide work. All right, so I want to take a couple minutes to talk about the transfer system component. If you've been coming to ATF meetings for a while, this is not new news to you, but this is a unique facet and component of the Arizona transfer system. Many states do not enjoy the structure and the organization that we have to serve our transfer students. So if you're brand new, this information will be pretty helpful to you. The AJEC, the Arizona General Education Curriculum, is a curricular structure that was designed by this group back in the early 90s. The AJEC, there are 3 versions, the AJEC A, the AJEC B, and the AJEC S. Those courses fill a block of 35 to 38 credit hours that when completed at the community college guarantee admission to ASU, NAU, and U of A, as long as that AJEC is completed with a 2.5 or better. Today we'll talk a bit about common courses. Common courses are those that faculty in a particular discipline identify that can be transferable and applicable to specific degree programs at both ASU, NAU, and U of A. So for this example, communication, we're going to identify some 100 and 200 level communication classes that will transfer to communication bachelor's degrees at the 3 universities. AZTransfer also manages the shared unique numbering system, which is a common course numbering system that was developed about 10 years ago. Also a statutory requirement and expectation. We've come up with a supra numbering system. One of the limitations of the shared unique numbering system is it only has about 100 courses in it that are common across multiple community colleges and universities. And one of the things we found on early on was that students and families and advisors and our community had misunderstood that only the SUN courses were transferable, only those 100 courses transferred. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Okay, we know that students can be earning community college and university credit before they even graduate high school. All Arizona community colleges have some type of partnership or some type of relationship with their local high schools to provide dual enrollment credit. This is college credit that students can earn while they're in high school at their campuses. Very much like a traditional classroom model where they're sitting in a class and they're learning from an instructor and they're getting a grade at the end. That is college credit. Also credit by exam. Most people are familiar with Advanced Placement in International Baccalaureate or CLEP. There's also the Cambridge International Exams and the Dante's Subject Standardized Test, the DSST. Each of these 5 exam organizations partners with local high schools in Arizona. Advanced Placement is probably the most well-known. There are about 500 high schools in Arizona and about half of them offer AP classes. International Baccalaureate is available at about 30 high schools in Arizona. Cambridge is available at about 25 high schools in Arizona. And CLEP and DSST are just exam-based course. They're not an actual course that a student would sit in, but they're an exam that a student would take and demonstrate knowledge and proficiency in. Both dual enrollment and credit by exam are also managed by AZTransfer. We maintain all of the course equivalencies and the matrices for all of those. We'll be going over those today that are applicable to the communication discipline as well. Throughout this, usually there are faculty questions, or sometimes somebody will say something or have a comment, or I might pause and ask for questions. I'm not going to do a lot of that this morning just because an ATF meeting can take 3 or 4 hours and I don't want to take 3 or 4 hours of your time, but you're also going to be kind of reading the room or, you know, looking at the guide, or you're going to have your chat monitor that you're going to want to work with to make sure that you're mitigating any conversation that's coming up during this time. One of the other things that AZTransfer facilitates is the evaluation of specific coursework. We have a system called ACETS, the Arizona Course Equivalency Tracking System. Many of you may be familiar with that or have used that. As community colleges modify any existing courses or as they develop new courses, those coursework, that curriculum, those textbooks, the learning outcomes are routed through that tracking system and sent on to the universities. And there are 4 different types of evaluations that faculty can give. The first, direct equivalency, is a one-to-one equivalency for a course. Your interpersonal communication class meets about 80% of the requirements and learning outcomes for our interpersonal communication class. So we're gonna say your interpersonal communication for 3 credit hours is equivalent to ours. We're gonna give it direct equivalency credit. We're gonna look at your interpersonal communication class and say, well, I don't know, that doesn't really require a lot of the same things. It doesn't touch on a lot of the same things. We're gonna give that departmental elective credit. It's 3 credits of comm elective. That example is really false for a discipline like communication, but that's essentially how it works. Or it's elective credit. It doesn't even really meet the merits of a communication course, but we're gonna give it elective credit. Or non-transferable is it's not college level learning. We're not even gonna give it elective credit. I'll go through it in a little bit, but we have some tables that we can show the volume of courses that we evaluate each year and how many have equivalencies. 90% or more of community college courses are transferable to the universities, at least as an elective, but a majority of our courses are coming in as direct equivalency and departmental elective. We can attribute that directly to these types of meetings and the longevity of our partnerships and our work together over the past 2 years to really focus on serving students and aligning our curriculum statewide. All of these system components stack together to support students earning their bachelor's degree. And so you can see here, this bottom block is any credits that students earn while they're in high school through dual enrollment, or their credit by exam through AP or IB. And that can also build into the AJEC. They're getting that foundation through the Arizona General Education Curriculum, an AJEC A or an AJEC B or an AJEC S. For communication, we know that's the AJEC A. Then any common courses, which we're gonna review today, those are your 100 and 200 level communication courses. All of that transfers into a baccalaureate degree. You can see that an associate degree is half, 120 divided by 2 is 60. State statute allows half plus 1 course, so up to 64 credits can be taken at an Arizona community college towards a bachelor's degree. There are some outliers to that. There are some 90-30 programs, specifically through NAU. There are some 75 credit hour transfer programs in the applied sciences or areas like nursing, but the standard across the board for most organizations and disciplines is gonna be this 60 to 64 credits in transfer. Before I move on to the statewide update, are there any questions? Fantastic. So the statewide update, we just like to provide a picture to each of you so that you know the larger efforts that are being made in Arizona, how we're moving students through the statewide transfer system, how students are faring. This is at a glance. These next few slides are not specific or exclusive just to communication. And then just a little note here, I'm not expecting you to go through each of these. One of my biggest pet peeves when sitting through a PowerPoint presentation is somebody starting in a very linear way and reading like this. Computer information sciences was the major with the greatest 5-year increase for baccalaureate degree recipients who entered as new transfers. 65%, or I can't even read, 95% of Arizona community college courses evaluated are transferable to at least one university. Because if I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got to read here, 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 here. My brain starts doing the math. Okay, she takes 30 seconds here, she takes 30 seconds here. There are about 15 of these. We're going to be on this slide for 7 minutes. I don't want to sit through this presentation. I'm already playing Candy Crush on my phone. So people can read these things. I like to hit the high notes. And so for me, the high notes are these types of things right here. 10,355, I'll call that about 10,000 new transfer students from Arizona community colleges enrolled at ASU, NAU, and U of A last year. About half of those students transferred with more than 60 credit hours. That's what we want to see. If a student chooses to go to the community college first, we really want them to finish their associate degree before they're transferring. So this is on the right track. We want students to have 60 more credits before they transfer. A couple of years back, I challenged the AZTransfer team. This is Kelly speaking, not as a facilitator, but just so you know. This number, 10,000, people look at and they say like, only 10,000? Well, transfer students are defined a very specific way. Transfer students are those students who've taken 12 or more credit hours after high school graduation. We know that there are many other students that go between community colleges and universities. And so this number, we've only published the last couple years now, 5,000, about 5,100 new university freshmen came into ASU, NAU, or U of A with credits from Arizona community colleges. These students aren't counted in this number. So 5,000 university freshmen came in with most likely dual enrollment credit, but because they earned that credit before they graduated high school, they're not counted as new transfers. This is a huge number that speaks to the value of the relationship between the community colleges and universities. Okay. I may or may not go through all of these things. It really depends. Faculty may ask questions about different things, but these should all be self-explanatory. You can see here, AZTransfer evaluates over 16,000 courses from Arizona community colleges. You can see almost 100% of those, 95% are transferable to at least one public university. Don't feel like you have to be prepared to speak on each one of these things, but just familiarize yourself with what they are. So if somebody asks you a question, you can address it. It's also perfectly okay if you don't know the answer to ask the note taker, hey note taker, hey Jenny Lee, will you record that question? I don't know the answer to it, but I'm going to be in touch with AZTransfer after today's meeting and I can email that back out to the group. We're not expecting that you be experts on all of the data. Data makes some people really uncomfortable. You don't have to answer every question. I'd actually prefer that you not try to guess any of this stuff on here and tell people the wrong information. I'd rather you come and ask us and we or you can send something back out to the group. Baccalaureate degree recipients. This is another data point that I think is really important when we talk about the work that we do. So this is looking at students who graduated from ASU, NAU, or U of A in 2017-18. You can see that about half, just under half of them, completed a bachelor's degree without credits from an Arizona community college. So if we flip that, we can say conversely, more than half of university baccalaureate degree recipients had some type of credit from an Arizona community college. This is our traditional number right here. This is those who transferred as new transfer students with 12 or more credits. About a quarter of them were the traditional transfer students. Just under, well, I probably shouldn't call it just under 15%. Our data analyst would say that's not true. She would say it's 12.56%, but I would say 12%. 12% of baccalaureate degree recipients also have credits as new freshmen from Arizona community colleges, and we believe that those are your dual enrollment students. These students are never counted as transfer students, even though they have transfer credit. So about 12% of those students were entering the university with Arizona community college credit already. This yellow one throws people off every single time. So I'm going to read exactly from the bullet point on this list, and I'll encourage you to do the same because it's really easy to get confused. 15.75% earned some credits from Arizona community colleges, either entering the university with fewer than 12 credit hours or earning college credit while simultaneously enrolled at a university. In traditional measures, these students are also never identified as a transfer student. What that means is a student could have 8 credit hours from Arizona Western College in Yuma, but they also have 10 credits from a community college in California. They technically wouldn't be in this area because they don't have 12 or more credit hours from an Arizona community college. They're just an outlier. Or this could be a student who came to ASU as a freshman, but during one of the summers, they picked up a class through Rio Salado College, or they went back home to Show Low and took a class at Northland Pioneer College, or they did a consortium agreement and took coursework simultaneous. So this is really the catch-all bucket for students that don't fit in these two areas. The big point that I want people to get out of this slide is that the community colleges are a huge part of baccalaureate degree completion at the universities. More than half of all bachelor's degrees at ASU, NAU, and U of A have some type of Arizona community college credit in them. Many faculty, many administrators, many people at university campuses may not even be aware because they're not identified as transfer students. These are transfer students. These are other students that have transfer credit. This is why we have ATF meetings. This is why we submit courses through ACETs. This is why we align our degree programs and our courses, because we have a majority of students taking credits between our colleges. This course equivalency report, again, is global. This is not specific to communication courses specifically, but this shows you at a glance, we have ASU, NAU, and U of A. This breaks down the total 16,000 courses evaluated, and it shows you, when we were talking about those 4 equivalency types, is it a direct equivalency? Is it an elective? Is it non-transferable? Or at the time that we ran this report, was it pending evaluation? I like to point out to people that the goal is not 100% direct equivalency. So we shouldn't be looking at this and wondering, why aren't all of these courses direct equivalency? Some courses are gonna be non-transferable. Some courses are not college level learning because they're either remedial courses. They're not 100 level courses, or they're not yet college level learning. Those are in our course banks and those have been evaluated. Some occupational or applied science programs that are highly technical, currently the way that we look at them as a course by course basis are not transferable, but they are transferable if they're completed as part of an entire associate of applied science degree. But the 1-to-1 ratio of that course is going to be non-transferable. Elective is also the designation for most courses if a university does not have that specific discipline. So for example, Japanese is a discipline that's not offered at all 3 state universities, nor is it offered at every community college. But if Pima Community College offers Japanese and U of A doesn't, U of A can't award a direct equivalency for Japanese 101. They'd have to award elective credit for it. So this is interesting to look at and give you a sense of movement from year to year. Pending evaluation, we evaluate coursework every day of the year. And so at the time that this report was pulled on June 30th of the last year, these were the ones that were pending evaluation, but that's done on an ongoing basis. I would then ask if there are questions about course equivalency report. Last year, AZTransfer did make dynamic versions of this report available. If faculty or if your ATF body has questions about that, have the note taker record that and send that either to Sienna or I, or put that down in your meeting report and we can share that out where they can drill down on, I wanna know, if I'm CAC, what are these 388 elective courses for the U of A? We have a dynamic report online that you can click on this and it shows all those 388 courses. Or if I'm Dene College, I want to know the 20 courses that are not transferable to U of A because maybe we modify those courses. The other thing you can do is you can go back your Dene College, you see, okay, well, NAU has 2 courses that aren't transferable and ASU has 8. We can go back through and say, okay, well, U of A, we want to work with you. These 20 courses that aren't transferable, can we modify them in some way? Or we can go back through ACETs. In that course equivalency tracking system, ACETs, it records reasons or notes from faculty for why that course was given the designation that it was. We don't go through that much detail in an ATF meeting just because you could see it would take a long, long time if everyone had questions. But that's a great thing for the note taker to record and for AZTransfer to follow up. We won't know that though, unless you as the facilitator write it down and put it in the meeting report. So if a faculty member, in this case, the Dene faculty member asks that and we don't provide it next year, that's where we start to lose some of our credibility and our accountability when we say we're gonna do something. So if they bring up a question or if they ask something, make sure that it's recorded in the meeting report and the notes. And then I like if the facilitators even follow up with an email and say, hey, Kelly, hey, Cian, the Dene faculty member had a question about these 20 non-transferable courses. You had mentioned there was a report. Can we email that report out to them? I think that's just thorough. Or a bit neurotic, but I like to be a neurotic communicator. Well, let's say an overly cautious and an overly abundantly clear communicator. All right, faculty usually are pretty interested in the data that is specific to them. And so this slide in each ATF is specific to this discipline, slide 17. That's why it's gonna be important that each ATF meeting you pull up the specific slides for your discipline. Really, it's just the cover slide and this slide are different. But if you pull up the wrong one, you're gonna be telling the ethnic studies group the communication information, and that's mildly embarrassing. So for communication specifically, this is a 5-year trend. You can see here from 2013-14 to 2018-19, 9,500 total graduates from the universities in communication degrees. So that's one of our higher disciplines for transfer students. Of those, 2,100 of these total graduates were new transfer students, and that's 22%. So just under a quarter, again, Tracy, our data analyst, would probably say that's really close to a fifth, not a quarter, but either way. About a quarter of total graduates in communication degrees came from Arizona community colleges and were transfer students. That is a pretty good middle road percentage. We have some disciplines that are 60% transfer students. We have some disciplines that are 5% transfer students. But again, showing this example justifies the work that we're doing. It validates the need for the work that we're doing because a large percentage of students are transferring from Arizona community colleges. This is where I'm gonna pause. And I'm just gonna make sure again that people don't have any questions about the statewide report before we go into the portal pages. So I'm gonna ask you guys the same things. I'm gonna pull up so I can see your faces real quick before we move on to the next portion. Any questions about the statewide update or the overview of AZTransfer? Okay. Again, I've been saying this stuff for a long, long time. So my expectation is not that you say it as fluidly as I do. If you end up reading the entire script, that's okay. It might sound a little awkward, but you're gonna have to do you the way that you do you and your presentation style, and that's okay. When I first started this job, I made a point of going and watching each facilitator do at least one ATF, and it really had the unintended outcome of making all of you guys really, really anxious and uncomfortable. So I don't do that anymore. But CN and I are available, our schedules permitting, to join you for a meeting if you feel really anxious. We talked yesterday and we'll talk more today and tomorrow about shadowing opportunities. But it's really up to you if you would like one of us to join you. I found that when the people usually want me to join them, they end up just asking me to do the whole presentation anyway, which is not the point. But so if we're thinking in big chunks of the ATF meeting, that's part one of the meeting. The next part is where the real work happens. And some ATF groups and faculty are gonna give 2 dice about the first part of the meeting. They don't wanna know the bigger picture. They don't wanna know the data. They just wanna come and talk about their curriculum. We include that part because organizationally, we feel it's important that all faculty have a baseline level of knowledge and information about what's going on in transfer and why it's important. Some people don't care about that, and that's okay. All right, so now I'm gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna come back up. Take a drink of my large blue cup. I find when I do the online presentations, my voice gets tired a lot faster than in an in-person meeting. There's a lot less interaction. There's a lot less natural engagement. I like to work an in-person room a lot differently, and that's really hard to do when you're staring at your computer screen, especially if you're sharing your screen because you're not even looking at the Brady Bunch list of faces. But you're gonna get in your groove and you're gonna figure it out. So I'm gonna have this pulled up. We're gonna go through this quickly, but I want to show you the different elements so that you know what we're asking people to do. You can follow along here. In your slide notes, again, it's going to tell you exactly what you should be doing in different elements, because if you're looking at this, it's hard to know exactly what we need updating. If I'm in an actual meeting, I'm going to do things a little bit differently because I found if I just slop this up and tell people, hey, does this look good? Does all this look good? Does all this look good? Does all this look good? Nobody says anything. So I'm going to go through it the way that I actually would do it in a meeting. Okay, so now we're going to review some of the elements that we've already established in prior years. We're going to confirm that this is still correct. Because we're in an online meeting, I'm really going to ask the chat monitor to help me right now and the note taker. If you have questions, please type them in the chat as we go. If you're confirming, I'm going to ask you to do that thumbs up icon or do a visual nod to make sure that this is correct. So these are college course prefixes that have been identified as being relevant to our field for communication. So Arizona Western College, Amman, is this still SPC? This is still the relevant, and I think, thank you. Central Arizona College, Jenny Lee, is COM still the prefix for you guys, and HMC?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Elena, I see American Sign Language ASL and Speech SPC for Coconino. Is that still correct? Okay, and you can see I'm not going to go through every single one, but I call people specifically out. I can't remember what ATF it was. I think it was history. 4 or 5 years ago, we were going through here and there was some prefix that was not related to history at all. Let's call it like German, G-E-R. And it was like going through here, all right, is this correct? And everybody was like, yeah. And then I paused and okay, I see German on here. Is this a mistake? We have done our best to clear these out and make sure that they are confirmed and that they are accurate. But if you see something that looks wrong, just because it's on a website, don't assume it's correct. This is my facilitator note to you. So if you see something on here that doesn't look right, ask the faculty representative, you know, is this right? SPT? Is it really SPT, speech and theater? Or is it supposed to be speech therapy? You know, it's okay to ask. And Josh, is that right? It really is speech and theater?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's awesome. All right, just wanted to confirm that it's correct. And you're gonna wanna check most of these, the spelling should be correct. The other last thing I would do, so when you call somebody out, they actually have to engage and confirm and then we're holding them accountable. But I would also ask everybody, are there any other new communication prefixes that are not included in here that we need to add? Okay. If nobody says anything, that's fine, but you're gonna have the note taker. All right, note taker. I would not record each thing, Jenny Lee, like Arizona Western College said these were correct. CAC said these were correct. I would prompt the note taker to only record notes if there's a change. Okay, note taker, it's actually, will you write down NPC speech and theater actually isn't speech and theater, it's actually speech therapy. Will you write that down and we'll make sure we get that recorded. So we go through the college course prefixes, we go through the degree lists. Okay, universities. These are the previously identified baccalaureate degrees that are affiliated with this discipline. Are there any new communication degrees from ASU? Then ASU might say something like, oh, we shut down the entire Lake Havasu campus because there's a virus going on and we've closed that campus. We don't have this one anymore. That's not true. I totally just made that up. But if we did, note taker, will you record ASU's Lake Havasu does not offer a communication BA anymore. NAU, are these still the communication degrees that you offer? Yes. Oh, but we also offer strategic communication in social media as a discipline emphasis. Note taker, will you please record NAU also has a strategic communication social media BA degree. U of A, do you have anything else? And we'll go through all of those. We also asked the universities to identify their same prefixes. You could have done this the same time you did the community college ones, but I like to read left to right. So it's really just your preference. But these are the 3 boxes. This one, this one, this one, we need to confirm are correct. We're really looking for typos, additions, or changes or deletions, really to these 3 boxes. All right, seeing none, hearing none, other, we will move forward to the Common Course Matrix. And And I'm gonna pull out my sheet somewhere, but of course in all of my stacks of paper that I wasn't super organized as I laid them down. I don't know where I put them. So hold please while I find that. I'm gonna provide a little background. Most faculty should know, again, the common courses are looking specifically for our field in communication. I'm gonna pull this so I can see each of your faces. I have a question for you guys. When I pull this up and share my screen, you guys all see the Zoom faces too, because you're seeing everything that's on my screen? Okay. But these common courses are not identifying every single course, but they are identifying 100 and 200 level courses that have been determined to be the best preparation for these bachelor's degrees here. So if you have some other communication or speech class, we always get asked about American Sign Language or some of those other programs. If they don't require or fit in these 4 courses boxes, they shouldn't be in this list. So all of these bachelor's degrees, except these 4 courses as part of the undergraduate lower division preparation to earn this degree. All of these universities, except the AZEC-A and all of the community colleges, all of this fits into the AZEC-A, the Associate of Arts, so you can come here. Okay. Depending on what you want to do, you may take a second. We have done this the past 2 years, so faculty may not need to see it because the tool hasn't changed. But if faculty have questions, you can take a step back. You can go to the website and you can show them what the student-facing tool looks like. This is an internal tool that faculty use. This is not what students see. Students see, if we come to AZTransfer.com and we go to tools, I gotta move this bar down. If we go to majors and degrees, and if we pull up Central Arizona College, this shows the 43 different disciplines of the ATFs. We're gonna pick communication. All of what we're working on feeds this student-facing tool, and that's why we have everything in different boxes, because it pulls it all together. It tells students, okay, here's the communication major guide for 2020 to 2021. This is specific to Central Arizona College. This tells you a little bit about comm as a discipline, as a field of employment. You're gonna earn an associate degree. We're gonna ask that you get the AZEC, the AZEC-A. This will tell you, this, you do not have to go through this, but this is if faculty are asking why we're doing all this. This populates all of the courses within the AZEC-A that a student would take. We come back here. This is how the common courses display. This is exactly from this matrix. This matrix that we're working on in the meeting displays this information for students. Get the AZEC-A, then take these 4 comm classes. These are the comm classes exactly as they are numbered at Central Arizona College. Then you can transfer to ASU, NAU, or U of A in any of these areas. This is the Lake Havasu BA degree at, well, not found. I would say, hey, note taker, will you make a note of this link? And then I'll work with Tanea or Kelly to make sure that we get this link updated. Sometimes that happens, even though we try our best. Sometimes links aren't always live. Let's try one more and see if it works. Ta-da! This is what it should pull up. This will pull up the major map and the degree information for ASU so students can see that. Okay. We have gone through that for the past 2 or 3 years with faculty to show them why we're doing the work. So it's not necessary to go through and show them the student view. But if faculty are new, or if they've forgotten, or if they need a brief reminder, again, the way that you access that is coming to, scroll to the top, AZTransfer, go to tools. I really wish this bar would be somewhere else because it's not my favorite. Go to major guides. And then it's specific to an institution. It's really from a student experiential lens, and then picking any discipline and showing them what it looks like. So you can see Eastern Arizona College, it's numbered differently, but the frames of everything are the same. Again, that's something just so you have that little bit of knowledge, but we're gonna come back to this Common Course Matrix. Okay, so when I was doing my preparation, most of this looks like it's already aligned. I just wanna confirm a few things that stood out to me. So it looks like Arizona Western College, I just want to confirm you still do not have an interpersonal comm class. Is that correct? Okay. Coconino Community College, it looks like you don't have an interpersonal comm class, an intro to comm class, or a small group communication class. Is that still correct? Okay. Dene College, it looks like the same for you guys. You don't currently offer interpersonal comm, intro to comm, or small group comm. Is that correct? Okay. The best of your ability, try to not make these sound judgmental, because we don't know the reasons that these are not offered. Maybe they've recently canceled them. Maybe this faculty member that's sitting in your meeting, their course load was just dropped. Maybe they really love teaching, you know, small group communication, and that class was canceled, and they're really, you know, that's a trigger for them. I don't know. We're not in a place to judge whether a course is offered at a community college or an institution or not. We're just pointing out these values aren't here and making sure that there hasn't been a change in the last year. Curriculum can change either way. I like to call out the ones that are not specifically listed first and then go back through. All right, Northland Pioneer College, I noticed that you have one under review. Is this a course that you've had a chance, do you have an interpersonal communication class at NPC, Josh?
I don't believe so. Where would I find that if I'm faculty, or just me personally, where would I find that under review?
Well, that would be, under review is a category for us, so it's not something that you guys would be reviewing. That's a default category that we have listed in this matrix, so we should clear it out. One of the things that I should point out right now too is we're in the public view of this. Let me take a step back and I'll show you for this example, Josh, because we can take care of it right now if you're pretty sure you don't have this course. So you can do two different things. You can either have your note taker record, and you can be recording on this sheet the whole time. You know, I'm going to check off, okay, Arizona Western College, CAC, or Coconino and Dene both said that these NAs still stand. NPC is saying under review really should be moved to NA because they don't have an interpersonal comm class. When you log into the chat lines, I'm going to minimize this again so we can see. Cian has gone through, every one of you should have, each of you should have a login and password here. My preference is to make the changes as we go through the meeting, but sometimes it can throw you off a little bit. So if you prefer to just write them down here, but it's still going to be your responsibility after the meeting to go in and request these changes to the matrix. So you're going to go in, I'm going to show you as if I did it in the meeting, but we're also going to reinforce some of this tomorrow. List common course matrix alphabetically. We're going to pull up communication, enter proposed changes. I could see each of these values is now underlined. I could click on Northland Pioneer College. I'm going to put NA for not accepted or not applicable. I'm going to put in fall 2020, and I'm going to put per Josh Rogers. What this does is a proposed matrix change is just that. It's a proposal. Sometimes faculty members will tell you during a meeting, I don't know, I got to go back to my institution and confirm that. No, we want a decision or a proposal now during the meeting. The meeting is the time to do that. What this does when I save it and then close it out, if I refresh my screen, it puts the proposed, well, I did it the wrong way. I shouldn't have done it that way. I'm used to doing it administratively. Shoot. Okay, let me go back. Don't do what I'm doing. Do what I say, not what I'm doing. I'm going to close all this out. We're going to go back. Don't do it that way. Refresh it. When we come here, pretend the last 2 minutes did not happen. You're going to put it in as a proposed change here in the bottom. A lot of the stuff I do, what I think my hands are just used to doing is doing the administrative changes. When you guys tell me something, that's what's made up here, but you want to make it here in the proposed change. So if I do save change, I close this out and I refresh this, it'll populate it in red right here. What will happen, what Cian and I do is that will generate to Josh later, because Josh is pretending to be the communication faculty right now. Josh Rogers is the facilitator. Later will log in to the chat lines and he'll see, hey, you have something in your queue for a proposed matrix change. Josh will have to approve this on behalf of the institution. Just because a faculty member says doesn't permanently change it. It routes it as a proposed change that each of the institutional facilitators will then approve. Questions about that before we move on? We'll go over that in detail tomorrow, but if you choose, you can do that live during the meeting. It saves a little bit of time if you're comfortable with it, but I've done it for years and years and I just screwed it up. So if you're more comfortable writing it here, that's okay. I would ask note taker, will you record this and also write it here just so we don't miss it? And I can tell you, faculty get a little hot if they've requested changes here year over year and they don't get changed, okay? So we're gonna go back here. I'm gonna show this screen one last time. I've gone through all of the under reviews, any NAs that I've seen, TOCC. It also looks like you currently don't offer interpersonal comm and small group communication. Just wanna verify that that's still correct, okay? Everybody else, I'd like you to look at your interpersonal comm columns, your intro to comm, public speaking and small group, and just look across Arizona Western College. Is this true for you? Central Arizona College, is this true for you? Cochise, is this still for you? Hopefully the person you've identified to send to this meeting is a comm faculty member that is familiar with these, that can quickly at a glance look at this and know that those are correct. Sometimes these digits have been transposed. Oh, actually CAC, it's not COM 206, it's COM 260. Okay, I'm gonna write that right here on my notes. We need to change COM 206 to COM 260. Note taker, will you record that? Public speaking for CAC needs to be COM 260, not COM 206. And I've recorded that right here on my sheet too. Okay. All right, we've moved through the Common Course matrix. Next, we're gonna look at the exam matrix, and my page pulled out, so I'm gonna just go back here. Sometimes this happens, and that's okay too. We're gonna go to the exam guides. You know what, no, I'm gonna show you the way that you would see it, not a shortcut way. So we're gonna go through the exam guide. Communication, you guys only have one exam. That's good news, I suppose. Some disciplines have lots of exams, but it looks like the one that we're gonna be reviewing today is DSST's Principles of Public Speaking. I looked at this last night also, and I just noticed ASU and NAU and U of A, you guys have different evaluations for that. I noticed that that's one thing that stood out to me. That might require another conversation, or actually, if I were a facilitator and I saw that, I might reach out to ASU and NAU and U of A ahead of time, but you can talk to the faculty. You're really gonna have to determine the nature of the group, if they wanna have alignment, or, you know, that discussion typically happens before the meeting, and Christy and Tanea and Alicia, I might look at this and see if you guys want to change this actually before the fall meeting, or if you want to have that discussion at the fall meeting, because that is a bit of an outlier. But I just want to go through here and confirm that Central Arizona College, Coconino, Diné College, EAC, Mojave, NPC, Pima, TOCC, and Yavapai, that you're currently still not accepting this exam. Is that correct? Okay, so I'm gonna make a note here because TOCC says under review, and Curtis has just let me know that they don't accept this exam. We don't wanna leave it in an under review status, so we're gonna put it in a not accepted status. So again, I'm gonna log back in to the chat lines. I'm going to request a matrix change. It's an exam matrix. It's communication, or it was Principles of Public Speaking actually. I'm gonna enter a proposed change. I'm gonna click on it. I'm not gonna make the change at the top because I'm not gonna make that same mistake I just made. I'm gonna put here, not accepted. You can see under here, it gives you the matrix entry standards. We want to type things out like not accepted, not acceptable, or non-transferable, or heck no, we're not ever gonna take that. We want things to be like this. PRE is just a placeholder for the prefix. I didn't want to write like XXX because that seemed awkward. But if it were accepted for credit, like something specific like COM 100, we would enter that in like that. And we would put 3 credit hours after it. Our preference is to have the credit hour count after it, but in this case, TOCC is saying they're not accepting it. It's current as of fall 2020, and we'd say per Curtis Peterson, and we would save those changes. We would refresh the matrix, and it's showing there in red. This routes it, and maybe we shouldn't say per Curtis, but you know, pretending to be the comm faculty, this would route it to Curtis to later accept it in his pending changes from here. Okay, so this one was an easy example because it is just one matrix, one Common Course matrix and one exam matrix. There are a couple disciplines that have multiple Common Course matrices. Art is one of those. There's a fine art Common Course matrix and there is an art history matrix. So there are two Common Course matrices to look at. Computer information systems has communication, computer science and CIS. Early childhood education has a certification and a non-certification matrix. I believe all others have one Common Course matrix. There are some Common Course matrices that don't have a lot of values. We're really encouraging in the last year or so each discipline to come up with at least one or two courses in a Common Course matrix. Because if you recall that student view that we looked at, if there are no Common Course values, it only tells student to take the AJEC. And if you're a faculty member and you're teaching classes and they're not in the Common Courses, we're not communicating that information to students. And so as you're doing your preparation, I would really encourage you guys to start looking at them this week and next week, because if you have questions about them, reach out to CN and I and confirm what you think you're seeing. Some of it might look a little awkward and weird because it is awkward and weird. Dance is one of those, ethnic studies is one of those, family and consumer sciences is one of those. Some of those where we've really encouraged faculty to dig deep and think hard about what some of those Common Courses might be. And some of them, they just haven't existed. So as you're preparing, you can always email or call CNRI and we'll help walk you through what the goal is. Some disciplines, biology, chemistry come to mind immediately. They've already done all of this alignment and nothing is gonna change. They're super on top of it and it's just gonna be a quick confirmation. Nothing's gonna look very crazy there. And it's just gonna maybe take you 90 seconds to go through those pages. Questions about the matrix before we move on? Okay. I'm going to pull back up my script. I'm going to look through. We've already done the exams for credit. We've recorded those. Each ATF is going to have its own personality and its own chair preferences. Sometime the chair is going to want to talk through all of these or really talk with you or take some ownership over this. You follow the chair's lead. If the chair's just sitting there, you power through it and you do it yourself. If the chair is somebody that you're familiar with, you may want to defer to him or her just to give them, especially if they're the chair of their faculty senate or the chair of an instructional council. Sometimes that chair position is real important to them and this is a real important role for them. You're going to want to go back and forth or, check with them. Hey, Madam Chair, I wouldn't really call somebody Madam Chair, but let's call her Sally. Hey, Sally, do you have anything you want to add? Or Sally, did we cover everything? Or Sally this or Sally that? Some people don't even want to let you talk and just smile and nod and do your job. And that's okay too. Those people are really few and far between. It's only a handful of people. But you're really gonna have to follow their lead. That is why I'd really encourage you, again, we're gonna talk about it a bit tomorrow, but to reach out to that chair ahead of time, maybe have a phone call with your chair a couple weeks before the meeting, talk through your style, their style, any questions that they have, and do that so that the ATF meeting is not the first time you guys have ever worked together, not the first time you've talked, because that's a recipe for disaster, I think. Again, my lens for looking at things is always the dynamic and the relational aspect of how we work together. We at AZTransfer, we promote strong relationships statewide because a strong relationship gives us the ability to have difficult conversations. If we know somebody, if we've humanized someone, if we've sat in a room with them, it's a lot easier to work towards an agreeable solution together. Then, you know, the virtual aspect is going to be a little bit different, but most of these people know each other. Many of them have worked together for years and years and years together and allowed that agility in working together. So again, based on your faculty's discipline, you would at this point, if you've reviewed the portal page, turn it over to the chair. The chair may have some agenda items or discussion items that faculty are going to want to talk about. My guess is faculty are going to have a whole lot they want to talk about this year if, or to the degree which they've been impacted by everything going on right now, especially the sciences, where they've been impacted in how they're doing laboratory sciences and laboratory components of their courses. Are you using this software? Are you using that software? All of those conversations are fantastic and are appropriate and reasonable for the ATFs if we've gotten all of our statewide business out of the way. If your groups want to talk about that at the beginning of the meeting, that's where we're going to ask you to refer to the end of the meeting as the appropriate time. That's a great topic. I'll write that down here. As soon as we get through our statewide business, we can have that discussion. In previous years, that was talking about HLC faculty credentials. It was talking about guided pathways. There are some triggers. There are some things. Some of it's really positive. Oh, we just won this award. We're publishing this book. I actually wrote textbook that we're using. Whatever it is, faculty may or may not want to discuss that in the statewide group, and that's fantastic. Note takers do not have to record all of that stuff. You can use your judgment and whether or not that's recorded. I feel like the stuff that's in the meeting report is really relevant for AZTransfer internally. I don't care if such and such college has a new college president. I don't care if such and such college is building a new recreational facility. That's awesome to talk about, but it has no consequence to me and the work that we're doing in AZTransfer. And to be completely candid, oftentimes that just mucks up a lot of the work that we're doing. And so note takers don't have to record all of that. Honestly, if your chair is managing the discussion, if you've even made the chair the host for Zoom and they're doing that, that could be a good time for you to start to process some of your matrix changes or go through your meeting report and use that time. That's much easier when you're physically in the room and you can just like physically start working on your stuff during the meeting if the chair is managing that discussion and get that all done. I understand completely if you don't want to do that, especially if you're sharing your screen. You don't want to be doing that and distract from the meeting. But if you've given over that role to your chair and you can start to do that, you do not need to facilitate the discussion. You also don't need to have answers for any of the questions that they're bringing up. That really is discipline specific, and that is relevant to the chair and that group. If they have questions and they all look at you and you're feeling awkward, you can say, I don't know the answer to that question. I can check with Kelly or CN and see if they have the answer. But AZTransfer is not the expert on any one discipline. We're not going to know if the National Association for Bilingual Education requires structured English immersion anymore or not. And we shouldn't know the answer. The faculty really should. So they're going to want to talk about those things. They're going to be really excited or really bored or really unengaged or really passionate. Any number of those things can happen. You can just watch the time. And if you're watching the time or if your chair's not watching the time, it is entirely appropriate for you to say, looks like we're about the end of our time. We do have a couple things that we need to wrap up for the meeting. We need to agree on a meeting date for next year. Typically most groups, and from a calendaring perspective, what I think is most important is this is the third Friday in October. Does the third Friday in October for next year still work? Okay, we're going to do the third Friday of October. Note taker, will you write that down? That's October 23rd, 2021. This year's meeting was virtual. Would we like to meet in person if that option is available for next year? We would. Okay. Who would like to host next year's meeting? Some faculty groups have a structure. Well, ASU did it this year, so and we go down this line alphabetically. So next it's going to be Arizona Western College, or next it's going to be this, or next it's going to be that. Hosting a meeting can be a real point of pride for some faculty, for some colleges, for some departments. We want to honor and respect that opportunity. In the past, recently, we have asked that just because of travel constraints, we be sensitive to those that are really far across the state. Like Arizona Western College is a reasonable drive for somebody from Phoenix. You know, it's about a 3-hour drive. But somebody coming from Dene College or from Northland Pioneer College, that's a 5 or 6 hour drive. That's not to say that we require that everything be hosted in Phoenix or Flagstaff or Tucson. We don't. But it's really the will of the group. If the group is in agreement with doing that. Who would like to host next year? We want a specific name and a specific campus location. We don't just want ASU or Pima Community College. Pima Community College has 6 different campuses. We need to know which campus and which faculty member. Okay, so it's the Desert Vista campus at Pima Community College. It's Abraham Smith. All right, we wrote that down. All right, Sally, you've been our chair this year. Would you like to continue as chair next year? Yes or no? No, okay, we need another chair for next year. Who needs to be chair? You can see from today that the facilitator runs most of the meeting. The chair is not like being a departmental chair. It's not like being your faculty senate chair. There's really not a lot of work that has to be done throughout the year. It's really just helping me run this meeting. Okay, Sally, you're gonna continue to be the chair next year. Okay, Sally from Eastern Arizona College is gonna continue to chair. Note taker, will you record that down, write that down? And that's the meeting wrap up. If the group wants to continue to have discussions or anything beyond that, that's fine, but you need that meeting wrap up information for the meeting report. Please do not leave without knowing who's going to chair, who's going to host, and where it's gonna be and what date it's gonna be for the next year. It is not helpful for us to know October of 2021, because that's not helpful. And you'd rather put it down in people's calendars now so that people can plan. Christy's asking a question, do we ever do all of that at the beginning? I think some groups have, or some groups have done that. I don't mind if that's your style. Either way, however you want to do that, you can. We've written it into the PowerPoint and into the script to be at the end. But if you think people will forget or filter out of the meeting before the end, that's okay to do at that time too. I'm trying to think, Cian, did I miss anything else that we want to do with meeting wrap up or the information itself?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay, so that's, oh, then what I also want to do is I'm going to thank Christy for helping me manage the chat, you know, and monitoring that. I'm also going to thank Jenny Lee. Hey, Jenny Lee, thanks for doing a bang up job, taking all those notes. I see you've already emailed them to me right now. I have them in my inbox. That's fantastic. I might give you a side eye glance if I see you handwriting your notes through the whole meeting. I mean, some people still do that. That's totally cool. I like to handwrite notes, but hopefully whoever agrees to be the note taker is going to be typing the notes and can email them to you before you get off the phone. I can tell you probably close to 100% of the meeting reports we have issues with are because the faculty note taker hasn't gotten the notes to you. I'm waiting on the notes. I'm waiting on the notes. I'm waiting on the notes. Then that faculty member 2 or 3 weeks goes by, and some of these people straight up ghost you and don't respond to you at all. What we've suggested now that we're recording all the meetings is if you don't get the notes from the meeting, you can watch the meeting recording and cut and paste or transcribe your own notes from that, which we haven't had to do yet. But that is your responsibility as a facilitator to get that information and have that record of that. It's not even 10:30, it's about 10:30, but that is the entirety of the meeting. That took me about 45 minutes. Oh, Kathy Silberman saying, and then they act like they gave you the notes at the next year's meeting. Yeah, they do. Like, and you know what? I mean, I'm all about holding people accountable. I also like to be a bit diplomatic, but some people will just straight up do some crazy things. And I would ask, again, that we ask a reliable note taker or the host. Now, some people don't like doing it. Some people aren't good, but you notice throughout the meeting, I kept saying, note taker, will you record this down? Note taker, will you write it? I also am writing it on my own thing too, because you would be surprised. Some note takers take 17 pages of notes and you get 17 pages of notes, and they have recorded Tanea was wearing a black shirt and she nodded at 11:15 during the meeting. And then Aaron laughed at 11:16. Like some note takers will do that because they have really litigious Robert Rules of Order faculty senate meetings, and that's what they're used to. Some notes are 1 page. For me, I say whatever works is whatever works. This is their group. This is what's important to them. Even if you want to have a couple note takers, I don't care if there are 2 note takers and you just put it all together. It doesn't matter. We just need a record of something so that we can move forward. What else? That's the meeting. Tomorrow, I was planning on just compartmentalizing because several people haven't joined us today because they might be coming back tomorrow. I don't want to skip ahead to what we do after the meeting, but I would just like to reiterate the way my brain works, and because my brain's the best brain, you should do it exactly my way, is to do it immediately after the meeting. You don't have to. You may have a workflow that works completely different. That's okay. But my style, if I go on tomorrow and I facilitate another meeting next week, it starts to get all mushy in my brain. Sienna and Aaron will tell you, we could talk about something on Tuesday, and by Friday, I'm already asking them, remind me what we decided, remind me what we talked about, how are we gonna do this? If I don't act on it immediately, I'm already on to the next thing. So I would strongly encourage you to take 30 minutes, block out on your calendar after the meeting to go in and do all the things that we're going to talk about tomorrow, because it starts to get really mucky, especially if you're doing a lot of ATF meetings back to back to back. We ask that each meeting report be done within 2 weeks of the ATF meeting, because if you have a lot of proposed matrix changes, what you're doing is generating a lot of work for everybody else. And if everybody else is doing that weekly workflow, they want to see those proposed matrix changes coming in. So next on our agenda for today for the actual training, not pretending to be an ATF meeting anymore, the 2 ATFs that some of you are going to shadow are theater arts and film and media. They are closely affiliated. Many of the same faculty attend both meetings. That's why we have them together. Traditionally, this group meets in person, and they have their theater arts meeting in the morning. They have a break for lunch, and they have a combined lunch. And if anybody is only in theater, they leave. But if they're staying for the film and media, they stay after lunch, and the film and media people that if they weren't in the theater meeting come and join. Film and media is one of our newer ATFs. So you're gonna see some of that, how we're building those proposed matrix changes, how we're building that common course matrix, how we're working through that. Theater arts has been around for a while, but we're gonna be doing those. And I don't remember, I probably said this yesterday, but again, if I don't write it down, I don't remember what I said yesterday. Sienna's doing one and I'm doing the other. I think it makes sense to see both. A couple of you reached out to us yesterday and said, hey, even though I facilitated meetings before, I'm feeling a little bit rusty. I'd like to still come in. Anybody can watch us shadow. Just email Sienna or I ahead of time if you'd like to shadow and do that. And we'll just make sure that we get you all the info and that we can anticipate and plan you being there. If you are going to shadow those meetings, or if we've asked you to shadow those meetings, I'd ask you to be on no later than 15 minutes before the meeting. We'll let you in as the host before we let the faculty in, but just to be a little prepared. What else about shadowing, Sian? Anything?
I think you've covered it all.
Okay.
I think you covered it all. You're doing the theater arts meeting from 11 to 1 on September 11th, and then the film and media one starts at 2.
Okay. And
So,
even though that group may decide to not take an hour break for lunch, I'm thinking we're just, for those of you that are going to shadow during that time, I think we're going to have to follow up and see. You know, that's really a personality thing. I typically don't eat during a Zoom meeting. Like, I won't eat in front of the screen, but I know some people will just stop their video and may eat, or they may want to amend their calendar to have a half-hour break for lunch or do different things, or people may have already had it calendared. We don't as AZTransfer, but also you as a facilitator shouldn't make those assumptions and make any changes for them. You could ask them. You as a facilitator, you could reach out and say, hey, I notice, you know, that you have an hour break for lunch since we're doing this virtually. Would you like to still maintain that hour break in the middle? Should we make it a half-hour break? Whatever should we do? But any other larger questions or comments, or how are you guys feeling about doing that presentation, about the materials and the resources that we've provided for you? Are you feeling comfortable enough with how to find them and print them off and do them? Do you think it's going to be easier to do it online? Do you feel less anxious than you would be being in front of a group, or is it harder to manage everything online?
I feel less anxious. I'm going to be more comfortable online, I think.
You can always fake a poor internet connection, like, and stop your video. You know, I mean, I one time went to something that was talking, one of like an early supervisory position when I was leading somebody and had to manage, like managing difficult conversations. And somebody told me, like, if you ever need to, well, now Erin and Sienna are going to know, wow, if you ever do this, I know you feel awkward, but she said, just stop and take a drink of water. Like if you're ever feeling anxious or uncomfortable, or if you need 10 seconds to regroup yourself, like just get your drink. Hopefully it's just water minus Diet Dr. Pepper, but you know, you just take your drink, and that's like a natural, non-awkward pause to collect your thoughts. I also don't mind, and you guys have seen me do it yesterday and today, just telling people I'm human. Like, give me 2 seconds. I don't know where I put my piece of paper. You're not, you know, an improv actor. We're not expecting you to just drop a hot beat and do this whole thing while you're tap dancing across the stage. It's okay to say, let me grab my notes. Oops, sorry, I clicked on the wrong box. It's not the end of the world. So Sienna and I are available to you if you have questions, if you're going through things. Again, your meetings, if they're not till October, might seem a long way off. I would strongly encourage you to just play around in there, dig through a couple things. Now is the time to come to Sienna and I with like, this looks wrong or this looks right. We will be available the morning of your ATF meeting if you freak out and something's wrong, but we will talk about you behind your back if you do that to us. We won't. We will just laugh and be really patient and understanding. I don't like to do things at the last minute. I don't like things to be urgent in emergency situations. I would rather do things 2 months, 6 weeks in advance so I can mitigate anything that comes up. But Sienna and I, pending our schedules, are available to help you if something comes up the morning of, the day of, throughout the meeting. We try, especially during the high ATF days, to keep our phones and our computers right with us. So if you're text messaging us, we can respond to you really quickly or do something. Because we have those links, we can hop into your meetings really quickly if we need to. But hopefully you've prepared ahead of time so you don't have to do any of that.
Hey, Kelly, I have a quick suggestion or question. Have you guys thought about coming up with maybe a basic note-taking template to encourage better notes?
Yes-ish, but it might not be exactly what you're envisioning. We used to have, and we still have some version of an ATF agenda that's a Word document that already has like bullet points and numbered out. Maybe we make that more available, or maybe we display it more prominently this year that people can just type directly into. Let me pull up on my screen really quick and see if we still have that. It might have been a feature that we only put into, I don't even know where I'm looking right now. Give me 2 seconds. I don't think we have it here, but maybe, Erin, we could build it into the virtual binder, or maybe we could display it in that resource tab. We have like a Word document that's the ATF agenda that you could type right into. Just seeing what we've gotten in the past, most people haven't utilized that, but I don't think it hurts to have that. We'll build that in and put it in the virtual binder, but we'll also drop it here in this resources, the ATF agenda.
Something super basic that they could grab on their, chemistry page, for example. Yeah. that maybe has different sections like college course prefixes with a
Yeah.
sub bullet that says changes. Or
Let me pull up and see what I have really quickly. I know I'm not sharing my screen right now, but give me a second and I'll see if I can show you what we've used in the past. I have lots.
I just don't want to get 18 pages of notes. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, you know what? You might. And that I'm being a bit facetious. I don't think anybody's ever really done 18 pages of notes, but I can tell you as somebody that reads all of those, I'm not like super proud of the people that write 18 pages of notes. It's not like 18 pages of notes get you a gold star. Let me see, pull this back up. I'll share my screen and you guys can see. Okay. I'll just have to update this and make sure that this is still accurate, but this is what we've done before. So introductions, identify note taker, statewide updates, college course prefixes and reviews. So like somebody could just type right in here and say everything and do it the wrong way. But yeah, Erin, I'll get this over to you. I'll look at it and make sure that it's current and then share this with you guys. And if we put it in the virtual binder, the virtual binder so the facilitators can have it, but I like Josh's idea. If we put it in that resources tab, then we can just direct the note taker to pull it directly off of there. Unless there's a more novel idea. Sometimes I want to just do the easiest solution and then Erin will say, well, what if we did it this way? It would look way better. So we can talk more about that, Erin, if you think of a better idea. But yeah, great solution. Thanks, Josh.
Kelly?
Yeah.
There was a form circulating last year, I think it was, where some of the facilitators, I didn't send it out ahead of time, but I think some people might have. And then I think it was either the chair of the history or political science ATF, because those were, you know, back to back, that they were collecting the institutional updates ahead of time. And that helps a lot with the note taking, and you get probably more information in the institutional updates other than just like, oh, well, we have a new building and, you know, just kind of like whatever they want to share at the time, because then they put some more thought into it ahead of time. But then it does make the notes longer.
Well, that's okay. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Kathy. CN, I think we got that and we shared it with a couple groups. I think, yeah, it was history and political science and then maybe anthropology or some other ATF, I think, had come up with it. And they would send it out to the group, you know, and that's, again, a great conversation to have with your chair about a month before your meeting, depending on, you know, if your meeting's early on in September, your chair's not going to be available in early August. But asking for those institutional updates, we'll look at that and plug it in the same places under the resources so that you can work with your chair to either you send it out or the chair sends it out. And a lot of that can be more helpful than people filling on the spot. Yeah, thanks for that, Kathy.
On that same note, I know like the Econ ATF sent out a Google form that they decided at the meeting when we were going through all of the resources online. They said, let's try this differently next year. Let's do this with a Google form and we can collect it all ahead of time. And I wasn't the facilitator last time, so I don't know how it went, but I would imagine it made that section a lot shorter, although you know, it is nice to have the conversations with the group at the time as well. But that's a heads up to the Econ ATF facilitator. And then if any other, that's something that you might want to ask your chair if they like discussing it at the meeting, or if they send something out to collect any matrix changes and degree changes and all of that.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Kathy. Some of these ATFs, like I'm thinking like physics, languages, a couple others where they've had a lot of longevity in the chair. That chairperson has a very specific way that they like to do things, and a lot of it, they manage the communication flow and the information ahead of the meeting in a very systematic way. So part of what we're going to talk about tomorrow is communicating. Hang on just a second. In my mind, tomorrow we were going to talk about communicating with chairs and hosts, but I see that that was actually on the agenda for yesterday in more detail. So I'm going to make a note right here so I don't forget, just in our wrap up, to talk about communicating with the chair and host. I'll take a couple seconds right now to talk about it too. But we, AZTransfer, myself, we send notices to everybody about 6 weeks before the ATF. We'll send a facilitator a reminder. Hey, Tanea, you signed up to facilitate this ATF. Just make sure you have it on your calendar. Here's all your duties, da, 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 da. Then we send something to the chair and we also copy you on it. Okay, you know, Chair, you last year, the meeting report indicated that you offered to, or you agreed to chair the communication ATF. Tanea is going to be your facilitator. That email is really the prompt for you to reach out to that person. If it were me, I would call that person or I would email that person and coordinate a time for a phone call. I don't want to have 15 emails back and forth. I would rather take 15 minutes and talk to that person, introduce myself, get to know, were there any things that we talked about, or like what Kathy's saying, we came up with this form last year to just jog their memory. I would rather do a phone call. I know many of you probably don't want to do a phone call, and that's okay too. We just want you to establish that relationship. The chair may also want to send a welcome email out to the group. That's totally their prerogative. We send 30 days before the meeting a reminder to all of the faculty. This is the meeting, it's coming up, here's how you RSVP. Back in June, we sent announcements out to all the faculty letting them know that the meeting has been moved to a virtual format. It's possible that this will be a surprise to a lot of people if they didn't check their email in mid-June. Some people aren't on contract, some people take that very seriously. They shut off their emails during the summer or they're out of town and they don't look at anything till they come back in August. We're gonna have to roll with those punches. But a lot of that is easier if you take a couple minutes and talk to the chair. The host of the meeting may also have some questions. If I'm a host, I feel like I'm totally off the hook now. I don't have to cater the food. I don't have to reserve the room. When we moved those meetings virtually, we reached out and made sure, not to each individual host, but I sent something to the hosts and said, it's no longer necessary. Please cancel your room reservations. Please cancel your catering orders. But it would also be a nice touch to just reach out to your host as well and let them know that that's not necessary. Assume that they have forgotten or they didn't read that email so that nobody's catering boxed lunches for 25 people and think that a whole lot of people are showing up. Some of our college campuses still have people going to work and still have people, and we'll have students at almost all of the campuses going in person. Some of our faculty may feel strongly about wanting to work and meet in person. And we're just gonna have to communicate that this was the decision that was made across the board. Hopefully everybody's supportive. The comments I got back from people were like, thanks for making this decision. Thank you for prioritizing our health and our time. I didn't get anything from people, but I also just have a gut feeling that some people did not read that email and it's gonna be a surprise to them when they get those emails. So anything else? Okay, tomorrow, just pre-summarizing what we're gonna do tomorrow, we're gonna focus on after the meeting, how you complete a meeting report, how you enter in your proposed matrix changes, what that generates, the timeline and the workflow that generates for then to approve matrix changes. As a meeting facilitator, you're gonna enter proposed matrix changes for the disciplines. But then on the back end, as an institutional facilitator, you're going to accept and approve or not accept proposed matrix changes from everybody else because you're the gatekeeper for your own institution's curriculum. We're going to talk about the timelines and expectations for completing all that and how that all works together. We're going to talk about the no program verifications and the no-show verifications. So if your faculty don't show up for the ATF meetings, what are you on the hook for? If you have identified no program or no courses or no faculty for certain disciplines, what are you on the hook for? And we're gonna go through all that together tomorrow as well. I imagine tomorrow's meeting will be about an hour to an hour and a half. That's entirely contingent on the numbers of questions that you guys have and how well I can keep my notes together on my kitchen table here. So anything else from all y'all?
I have one question for just you, not about this. So
Is it who did my hair and why I have 6 inches of roots?
Exactly. No.
Okay. Do you want to stay on with me after everybody else leaves?
Yes, please.
Okay. Cool like Kool-Aid. We'll see you guys all tomorrow. Again, tomorrow's Zoom link is a separate one from today. It's available on the agenda, or it will be on the portal page after I submit the meeting report. I will see you guys all tomorrow at 9 o'clock, or you can email me, text me, or call me in the interim. Take care.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
All right, Kelly.
Oh, how are you? I like your cactus background.
Thank you.
My cell phone cover is all cactuses.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, I've been trying to play around with backgrounds since you can.
Yeah.
And I'm at my table too, my kitchen table. So like you'd have like nothing in the background. So I figured, why not?
Yeah. Well, usually, I mean, I have like threatened my kids. Usually one or all of my 3 kids will pop in. Because, you know, they had your kids aren't school age, right? Like your oldest is like 3?
Yeah, but they're back in daycare, but they were here to pop in.
Well, because like in like March, April, and May, they had like online Zoom stuff, so they got to see people. So they know that like Zoom is where you can like see friendly faces. So they'll always like come up here on my shoulder and be like staring and saying hi or trying to do like silly things. And I don't know, it's gonna be interesting, but I probably should do a background. Would you like to come show Tanea your makeup? Here, my middle daughter. This is the only thing that keeps them busy.
I like the makeup. Looks like you've been busy this morning.
Okay, go back upstairs. We're almost done. Go upstairs or go. All right, so what's up?
Is that your oldest?
That's my middle daughter. So my oldest 2 are only 14 months apart. So they are exactly the same height. Everybody thinks they're twins, except one has brown eyes, one has blue eyes. But my oldest is going into 3rd grade, then 2nd grade, and then I have a 3.5-year-old. So, and it's probably all going to be online school. So,
yeah. No, I'm glad. Like as much as it stunk at the beginning, having a baby and a 3-year-old, now it's not as bad. But I'm like almost grateful and feel really bad for all of you guys with kids in school because they just go to daycare. So
how old's your baby?
He's 9 months.
That's right. Okay. Because it was like last October, right?
Yep. No, September, but yeah.
September. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun.
I'm sure.
He's a
my husband's like, well, we should send the 3-year-old to daycare. And I'm like, well, if I'm home, why would I do, like, what's one more? Like, for the most part, they keep each other busy and happy. But when the school stuff, we have 2 laptops, a desktop, a couple iPads. But for them to do their school stuff, I don't even think we have enough bandwidth to have 3 computers doing Zoom at the same time. So I don't know what's going to happen. And one of my laptops didn't have a webcam, so I've had to buy like an aftermarket webcam. I bought them like the gaming glasses that protect their eyes. I didn't have any of that in the spring, but we're trying to do that. And I don't know. It's going to be a shit show, to be honest. But,
yes.
oh, maybe I should stop pausing.